It's a feeling that's flowing like a river. Time to swap them dollar signs for dreams. There's a river running through it and it flows through you and me.
I'm John Osborne, broadcasting from Spokane, Washington. Today we'll be talking about a university irrigating its 18-hole golf course with 10,000-year-old water, jeopardizing a community's water supply, and what local citizens are doing to protect their community's drinking water. We'll also be talking about the largest all-federal irrigation project and how it is threatening the survival of salmon and what citizens are doing about it. In upcoming programs, we'll be talking about Yahoo, Microsoft, and other companies locating their data centers in eastern Washington, the threats to public health, and what local activists are doing in these rural communities to protect their communities and their futures. So let's go first to Washington State University and the threat to community drinking water. Now, Washington State University is a land-grant university that's located in eastern Washington because of access to groundwater. So the Palouse country of eastern Washington is this rolling, arid landscape. There are vantage points from which to look at the Palouse, and when you're standing there and you're looking out across this landscape, it's really spectacular. Rolling hills, very dry, and a stark contrast to Seattle and western Washington. Communities located on the Palouse depend on groundwater for their drinking water. So when you open up your tap in your kitchen, the water that comes out is really good. I mean, it's really good water. It's also very old. It's about 10 to 20,000 years old. It's like the water in many of these basalt aquifers in eastern Washington and on the Columbia Plateau. The aquifer called the Grand Ronde Aquifer provides water to about 50,000 people in two university towns joining each other. One is Pullman, Washington, the other Moscow, Idaho, home to Washington State University and University of Idaho, respectively. The water that comes from the Grand Ronde Aquifer is in decline. So since about the 1930s, when the water levels have been monitored, the water levels are dropping at least a foot per year in that aquifer. And this is a threat to the future of these communities and others who depend on this water, because there is no other easily accessible water. Oh, there was some discussion about bringing water up from the Snake River, but it would be prohibitive. Plus, the water is really not available in the Snake River to be pumped up and made available up on the Palouse. In the late 1990s, Washington State University decided to expand its golf course to an 18-hole golf course, primarily to serve its alumni. In order to do that, requires pumping more water. This triggered alarm in the community because of the declining water supplies available. The university proceeded. The Washington State Department of Ecology bent over backwards and provided the university the water rights that the university requested, and the university proceeded. Local citizens challenged that decision, and that challenge first came in 2007. This is part of a larger concern about the future of groundwaters in Washington State. These groundwaters are under tremendous pressure throughout the state. At about the same time that Washington State University was planning to expand its golf course, municipalities in Washington State were looking at how to get hold of more water. And in 2003, the state legislature passed a bill called the Municipal Water Law. This is significant because the university is using that new law to defend the decision to obtain water for its 18-hole golf course. The 2003 law eventually made its way to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court said, bring us an example. And so the Washington State University has statewide significance because it really is the first example of how this law threatens groundwaters throughout the state. The challenge was brought by an individual, Scotty Cornelius, and also two organizations, the Palouse Water Conservation Network and the Palouse Group of Sierra Club. Scotty got involved in this case because he loved this park that was adjacent to the small golf course called Round Top. Scotty was a caretaker for the park. He came to realize that the proposal for the 18-hole golf course would wipe out a substantial part of the park and also destroy this historic carriage road. The proposal also opened his eyes to what was going on with the aquifer, and it was really the portal of entry for him in understanding the threat to the community's water supply.
People all over the world depend on groundwater for their drinking water. And even here, where we have a land-grant university and a very well-defined aquifer problem, we still can't get it right here. We still are pressured by our administrative and political leaders to develop an amenity that uses a resource which cannot be replaced.
And Scotty really sounded the alarm and worked with others in the community to question what the university was doing. It's interesting because, in part, the Washington State University lays claim to a commitment to sustainability. Many of their graduate programs are focused on sustainability. If you go to their website, sustainability is really a catchword for the university. Yet the one resource upon which 50,000 people depend on the Palouse in this area is this groundwater. And despite claim to sustainability, the reality is the university is aggravating a very serious problem and threatening not only its own survival, but the survival of the community. Where we are with this case is that it is currently in the Court of Appeals and is proceeding up, and we fully expect that this case will be breaking new ground as it relates to water law in Washington State. I'd next like to talk about the Similkameen River. The Similkameen River is a tributary to the Okanagan River, which in turn flows into the Columbia River. Most of the Similkameen actually comes out of British Columbia, about 90% of that watershed. Toward the end of the river, before its confluence with the Okanagan, near a small town called Oroville, the Similkameen runs across just really beautiful falls called Similkameen Falls. Above the falls is a dam that was built in the 1920s. For about 50 years, that dam has not produced energy. It's just been sitting there. The Okanagan PUD is proposing to divert the water away from Similkameen Falls and to try to generate electricity. The problem is that the proposal is uneconomic, including that dewatering the falls would result in a loss of about $500,000 a year in tourism value. There's also a new trail that is under construction that will link the Cascades with the Rockies, and that trail, which is currently built to take advantage of the waterfalls, will now look down on a dry riverbed. The state of Washington, through its Department of Ecology, is currently backing the Okanagan PUD's proposal to dewater the waterfalls. A number of local citizens, local ratepayers who are distressed by the cost to them, not only out of pocket, but also for dewatering the falls, are organizing, and other organizations are helping them with the effort to challenge Washington State Department of Ecology as well as the Okanagan PUD to ensure that there is water in the waterfalls. The issue we'll be talking about is the largest all-federal irrigation system and how that system is threatening the survival of salmon. If we go back about 200 years, really the blink of an eye in time, on August 12th of 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition stepped from the Missouri River watershed into the Columbia River watershed. And with those steps, it entered a river of life, a place where 15 million to maybe 50 million salmon returned each year to spawn and renew a cycle of life, to spawn in those natal forest streams and in the deserts of the Columbia River system. It was a place where people lived in dynamic equilibrium with the river, a river that supported vibrant native cultures, a native river itself that supported incredible runs of salmon, the richest runs of salmon on Earth. In a very short period of time, 200 years, profound changes have come to this river, and a number of runs of salmon have been forced into extinction. Part of the problem has been loss of habitat. Other problems include the construction of large dams. Perhaps the largest of the dams, and the one that comes to most people's mind, is Grand Coulee Dam. Grand Coulee Dam was largely a personal decision by President Roosevelt in the 1930s. There were choices made available to him, and he elected to build the big dam, the high dam, in part to make it an irrigation project. It was the Depression, and there were Depression-era farmers that he was hoping to help. The dam was constructed. It blocked just incredible runs of salmon up into the upper Columbia and into Canada. And the consequences for the river have been profound, even as the dam itself has produced great benefits in terms of hydropower and flood control. But we continue to live with the environmental legacy and the impacts that it has had on native cultures in the Columbia River system. It's been clear as time has progressed that the remaining runs of salmon are in trouble. And as river flows continue to be impacted by withdrawals, in part for irrigated agriculture, and as we face a time of climate change, those salmon are in more jeopardy with each passing year. Washington State has been no friend of salmon, and that has been particularly true in recent decades. Still today, the state is pressing ahead to withdraw large amounts of water from the river, even in the face of recommendations from the National Academies of Science in 2004. Shortly thereafter, Washington State passed a law to aggressively pursue new opportunities to build new dams and to take more water from the Columbia River. Part of the impetus behind the dam building frenzy in eastern Washington is a problem on the Columbia Plateau. And this is a problem that is inherently linked to the history of President Roosevelt's decision in creating the Columbia Basin Irrigation Project. Now, if you have been to Grand Coulee Dam, you might have recognized the pipes that run from Lake Roosevelt, the water impounded behind the dam, uphill. Those pipes carry water for irrigation. In the 1940s, farmers who were in the area had the opportunity to vote whether or not to receive that federal water, that heavily subsidized federal water called project water. Most of the farmers, covering about 2/3 of the potential irrigation project, voted to accept the water and the conditions that went with it. About 1/3 of the farmers, about 1/3 of the area covered by the potential project, declined to accept the conditions of federal water. So in the succeeding 60 years, those farmers have continued to dryland wheat farm, and some have put down wells. Those wells have been pumping groundwater. Again, these are basalt aquifers in eastern Washington. They don't recharge. The water is fossil water, 10,000 to 20,000 years old. And not surprisingly, if you pump and mine these aquifers, the water tables drop. It's been aggravated because thousands of these wells are illegal. That is, that because of the nature of these aquifers, that there is layer upon layer of basalts, that if you don't case the wells, then the water will drop through the hole created in the construction of the well. And so you pierce one layer after another, the water just flows down through the hole. So such that if you put your ear to the well, you can hear the water cascading. And these are called cascading wells, and they're illegal because you're only allowed to take water from one layer at a time. The state has had decades to address this problem, and it has refused to do so. The problem of mining these aquifers in eastern Washington was recognized in the 1960s. In the 1970s, 1971, this was clearly recognized. The decision was put to the state. The recommendation from economists at Washington State University was that if you were going to go ahead and mine these aquifers, you only had about 30 years of water, and the farmers who were irrigating needed to amortize their investments over those decades and then transition out. Well, if you fast forward 30 years to the early 2000s, sure enough, the water tables are dropping dramatically, sometimes up to 10 feet per year. Farmers and others, business interests, are now well organized and pushing and gaining political support for spending billions of dollars for a small group of landholders in eastern Washington to receive federal water that had been rejected in the 1940s. So the press is on. In December of 2010, the Bureau of Reclamation and the Washington Department of Ecology issued a draft proposal, and the public comment period closed in January of 2011, and we expect in 2012 the final proposal. This proposal will cost the public an extraordinary amount of money, probably $1 to $4 billion. It will benefit a handful of economic interests. It will likely damage shrub steppe habitat, which is already exists in only remnant areas and supports grouse and other species that are in jeopardy. And it will take more water out of the Columbia River and further threaten salmon. So despite these decades where we have witnessed such devastation to salmon runs, in the Columbia River system by Grand Coulee and other dams, we are now witnessing a continued assault on the Columbia River and Columbia River flows by Washington State and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. And that's today's program, and thank you for caring about water, about the land, and about the future of our communities.
It's a feeling that's flowing like a river. Time to swap them dollar signs for dreams. There's a river running through what I that flows through you and me. I am bound over the hills and tear the heart of this wild land. That's the line we drew together. Over the mountains, singing rivers, unto the heart of this wild land. There are places that I know where us humans seldom go. They are power for our spirits, and they feed our very souls. They have no rhyme or reason, they'll tear down your mighty plans. They just are what they are, oh, the heart of this wild land. Here we go. I am bound over the hills unto the heart of this wild land. Over the mountains, singing rivers, unto the heart of this wild land. As long as mountains rise and fall, there are those who heed a call to seek the hidden places beyond these valleys' jaded walls. Some will walk the wide vast spaces, others wonder where they stand. Some just dream of the thought, the strong heart of this wild land. I am bound over the hills unto the heart of this wild land. Over the mountains, singing rivers, unto the heart of this wild land. Oh, the rivers of this life keep flowing through me. I'm a piece of every place I've ever been, and I know I've touched the heart of this wild country. As I tramp the snowbound passes in the wind, I am bound over the hills unto the heart of this wild land. Over the mountains, singing rivers, unto the heart of this wild land. Let me hear you now. I am bound over the hills unto the heart of this wild land. Over the mountains, singing rivers, unto the heart of this wild land. One more time. I am bound over the hills unto the heart of this wild land. Over the mountains, singing rivers, unto the heart of this wild land. Unto the heart of this wild land. Unto the heart of this wild land. could live. If we could walk this land with respect for all. Oh, what a life we could live. Oh, what a life we could live. I would love to do another song for you. Let me do this one.
Walkin Jim's thoughts.
A song is like a thread woven in the string, twisted and tied to everything. A time is shown, nothing stands alone, all nature in it sings. The clouds build up and the rain falls down, feeds the rivers ocean bound. Each wayward stream flows forth a dream, an endless dancing song. It's a circle of life for a living. It's a circle every which way. There's a lesson there for the giving, so go on and give it away. It's a planet of blue with islands of green, shares this life and all it means. Each death and birth brings to this earth a whole circle coming clean. It's a circle of life for a living. It's a circle every which way. There's a lesson there for the giving, so go on and give it away. The wind takes a seed and away she blows, or where she stops and nobody knows, until she's bound to a little piece of ground and the life within her grows. It's a circle of life for a living. It's a circle every which way. There's a lesson there for the giving, so go on and give it away. It's a circle of life for a living. It's a circle every which way. There's a lesson there for the giving, so go on and give it away. Go on and give it away. Go on and give it away. Oh, what a life we could live. If we could walk this land with respect for all. Oh, what a life we could live.